Welcome all for yet another session on RS and U on science of cosmetics and personal care products. I have not put the first slide now, I will put the first slide little later. Before that, in the next list of building blocks, what we will be discussing is about preservatives, right? Preservatives, what in my classification, in my presentation, what I have done, I have considered antioxidants, chelating agents and antimicrobial preservatives as antimicrobial preservatives are all the three as preservatives for the product. But slight difference from European Union. European Union, EU cosmetic regulation define preservatives as a substance which are exclusively or mainly intended to inhibit the development of microorganisms in the cosmetic product, right? EU specifically defines antimicrobial preservatives. This point just you can keep in mind, but for our study in this section as preservatives, I am taking, apart from antimicrobial preservatives, antioxidants and chelating agents also as preservatives, right? That is the difference, right? So, my definition of preservative, what I have defined, okay, for our study, okay, a preservative can also be defined as an ingredient that is added to products to prevent decomposition by microbial growth or by undesirable chemical changes that make the product unusable or unsafe. So, a preservative can be defined as an ingredient that is added to products to prevent decomposition by microbial growth or by undesirable chemical changes that make the product unusable or unsafe, right? Product unsafe if lot of pathogenic bacteria grow in the formula. Sometimes you might not physically see any product might slightly, there might be a drop in viscosity, but there can be a microbial contamination, a slight odor difference might be there. So, microbial contamination of pathogenic bacteria in the product can lead to serious issues it can cause severe skin allergy and secondary infections on the skin that make the product unusable. This is unsafe, right? Make the product unusable. See, some changes, right? Some of the herbal extracts added in the product can turn brown, but the safety of the product is not compromised, but the product has changed from white to light brown. So people, they don't want to use it. They feel that the product has spoiled, right? Even though it is safe. So it becomes unusable. It is safe but unusable, right? So a microbial growth or undesirable chemical changes that makes the product unusable or unsafe. Okay. Ingredients that protect the product from oxidation that leads to an undesirable chemical change in the product are called antioxidants. So, all antioxidants protect the product from oxidation. Right? Oxidation of the product can lead to undesirable chemical change in the product. Either it can create an odor or the active ingredients can lose its potency. Right? So, that is the one. Ingredient that makes some of the impurities in the product like heavy metals inactive are called chelating agents. See, these impurities can speed up oxidation process. Right? Heavy metals like iron in the product can catalyze the oxidation process. ppm levels of these impurities can catalyze oxidation process, and therefore chelating agents chelate with the heavy metals and make it ineffective. In the product, it has that function, right? It has other functions also, which is not relevant here, but anyway, we will discuss that also when we come to chelating agents. Ingredients which are exclusively or mainly intended to inhibit the development of microorganisms in the cosmetic product can be termed as antimicrobial preservatives. This is inhibit development of microorganisms in the cosmetic product. Now, in this part 18, right, we will talk about antioxidants and chelating agents. In part 19, this will be part 19 of our discussion. Part 19 we will take antimicrobial preservatives separately. In this part we will talk about antioxidants and chelating agents. Right? So, Dr. R.S. and you, Science of Cosmetics and Personal Care Products, Building Blocks, Preservatives, section 1, where it is about antioxidants and chelating agents. Right? So, part 18, Building Blocks, Preservatives, can put section 1, antioxidants and chelating agents. So, part 19 will be section 2, that will be antimicrobial preservatives. Right? So, we will, because the videos are becoming very long, so I am breaking it up so that it is easy for you. So, antioxidants. Ingredients readily oxidizable in the formulation, right? So that it preferentially gets oxidized and it doesn't prevent the active ingredients or the other ingredients which we want to protect. It will not allow it to get oxidized. Examples. These are not antioxidants, sorry, paraphenylene diamine, vegetable oils. Okay. So, before I come to this, I will talk about different types of antioxidants used in cosmetics. There are oil soluble and water soluble. Right? Oil soluble and water soluble antioxidants. Butyrated hydroxyanizole, butyrated hydroxytoluene, alpha tocopherol, vitamin E. Alpha tocopherol, vitamin E acetate has no antioxidant benefit. It has to be alpha tocopherol, vitamin E, right? All these three are oil soluble. Water soluble, vitamin C, sodium sulfite, sodium metabisulfite. Vitamin C and along with these you can use based on the pH of the product, either sodium sulfite or sodium metabisulfite can be used, or combinations can be used with vitamin C, or sodium sulfite or metabisulfite combination can also be used. Based on the pH, one of them can also, it depends upon your formulation design. So, water soluble preservative is this: sodium sulfite, sodium metabisulfite, vitamin C. Oil soluble is BHA, BHT, vitamin E, widely used, right? Okay, this is clear. Oil soluble, water soluble. I have shortlisted from a big list the antioxidants widely used. Right now, we will come to this. Now, there are two ingredients: paraphenylene diamine, vegetable oils. Vegetable oils are used in hair oils, creams, lotions, right, and lip balms, etc., etc. Then paraphenylene diamine, it's the basic hair dye. It's the basic hair dye, okay? PPD based hair dye. Now, paraphenylene diamine, when you apply the hair dye, there will be two tubes. One will contain paraphenylene diamine with the couplers. That when we discuss the mechanism of action of paraphenylene diamine based hair dyes, we will discuss about that. Now, this contains paraphenylene diamine in one tube, in the other hydrogen peroxide, which is an oxidant. When both are mixed and applied, okay, PPD enters the hair and hydrogen peroxide oxidizes it, right, and it forms a bigger molecule which gets locked inside the hair, and that is how it works. So, the entire process of PPD working is by oxidation, right? By oxidation. So, that is why at the end you very potent oxidant, you put hydrogen peroxide, right? Now, when you have a tube with paraphenylene diamine, you have to preserve it so that it should not get oxidized on storage. Any small air pockets, so it has to be sealed well, the tube. Any small air pockets also can slowly oxidize paraphenylene diamine. When it gets oxidized in the tube itself, its efficacy is lost, right? It becomes black. It becomes black. You can squeeze a tube of paraphenylene diamine, that tube, and then keep it exposed for some time, it will become black. So, a very small quantity of antioxidant, usually sodium sulfite, water soluble antioxidant sodium sulfite is added along with sodium with paraphenylene diamine to protect it from oxidation on storage, right? So, antioxidants preserve the active there from oxidation or from deterioration. If not, there is a chance that it can get oxidized slowly. Not only the product will lose its efficacy because PPD content will come down, but the product will also turn the color, right? So that is one thing. That is where a water soluble antioxidant is required in this case. Vegetable oils we discussed in emollients. Vegetable oils are triglycerides, right? Triglycerides of either saturated fatty acids or unsaturated fatty acids, right? Saturated fatty acids or unsaturated fatty acids. Saturated fatty acids are very stable, but unsaturated fatty acids, if it's used in the formula, I told you unsaturated fatty acids has good skin benefits, but it has the potential to build in ceramide lipids, right? But for example, hair oil with olive oil or a small amount of sesame oil, along with coconut oil. So what happens now? The double bond can get oxidized. Okay, the double bond can get oxidized. Okay, forms peroxides. So now, because of this oxidation, the oil will become rancid. So actually, even the vegetable oil we buy, that has a potent antioxidant. That is what? No, we don't know. That is why now people are going for the natural oil which has no preservative, but those oils have to be used very fast. You can't keep it for a long time. But if it is a preserved oil with all synthetic preservatives, you can keep that oil for long time, vegetable oils for consumption. But here usually BHT or BHA can be added. These are cheap antioxidants for oils, but best antioxidant is alpha tocopherol for vegetable oils, but that is very, very expensive. We have to, if we could incorporate that, it's fantastic. Alpha tocopherol is the first choice in our cosmetic products. It has skin benefits, right? It protects the skin and also protect the product from oxidation. So we have seen what is an antioxidant. It prevents the product from some of the ingredients in the product, it protects it from getting oxidized. That can have undesirable effect in the final product. So we found very commonly used antioxidants in cosmetics and personal care, and we have seen two applications, very, very important applications in hair dye and vegetable oils, right? Next we will go to chelating agents. Again, what are chelating agents? Ingredients that make some of the impurities in the product, like heavy metals, inactive, are called chelating agents. These impurities can speed up, that is, they can catalyze oxidation process. So chelating agents work synergistically with antioxidants. Right? See, heavy metal impurities can be mostly in water based products. So there you need chelating agents. Heavy metal impurities are mostly in water based products, right? What are the source of heavy metal contamination in the product? Heavy metals are basically, a lot of heavy metals are there. Basically two such common heavy metal problem is ions and lead. Iron and lead. These are the two common heavy metals that can get the product can get contaminated. How? See, we use demineralized water. Okay, mostly if GMP is strictly enforced, this can be heavy metals can be avoided from water. Avoided from water, right? It can be avoided from water, but heavy metals can come from manufacturing equipments. No? Transfer lines, if it is product transfer lines, no? If it is metallic lines. Product transfer lines and other raw materials. Used in the product, where example surfactants, surfactants can have heavy metal contamination. So in quality assurance, each and every ingredient should be tested for heavy metals. There is a limit for heavy metal contamination, and each product should comply this. So the other source of contamination is if you use iron oxide pigments, right? Iron oxide pigments. If you use iron oxide pigments, free ions can be present. So that can also give a problem. So there are, even though water can be the major source, if you give completely deionized water fully free from any ions, free from any iron or heavy metals or chloride or sulfates, everything can control that. But you are continuously using the manufacturing equipments, the transfer lines which are metallic, or the raw materials. Some of the raw materials can, because their manufacturing process itself is very chemical intensive. No, they can ethoxylation, sulfonation, all those things can impart some heavy metal impurities from the equipments they use. So these are the source of heavy metal contaminations, right? So now these heavy metals have to be chelated. See what happens if you add a chelating agents, it chelates the heavy metals. Once it gets chelated, the heavy metals property of catalyzing oxidation will be lost, right? It has to be it's chelating agents. That's why it's called chelating agents, right? Now, example of chelating agents, no? Very widely used ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid, disodium salt. Ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid, disodium salt is commonly used. Trisodium salt is also used, but tetrasodium salt is used for higher pH product if the pH is more alkaline, right? Alkaline pH, tetrasodium salt is used. Otherwise, disodium is widely used. Disodium EDTA, called disodium EDTA, is the best chelating agent. Now, this is a synthetic product, not biodegradable. Okay, but recently people started using sodium phytate and phytic acid. This is also a potent chelating agent. Right? Natural and biodegradable, but very expensive compared to EDTA, right? Sometimes citric acid has very mild chelating benefits. Okay, it works synergistically with antioxidants, no, water soluble antioxidants. So it works synergistically to protect the product from oxidation, right? Apart from these things, where chelating agents can't be used, you have to be very careful where chelating agents can't be used, right? Where chelating agents can't be used, right? For example, chelating agents chelate calcium ions and magnesium ions also. So, if you have calcium salts and magnesium salts are used in the product for functional benefits, chelating agents should be avoided. Right? Chelating agents should be avoided if calcium and magnesium salts, for example, magnesium salts are used in some emulsions which is water in oil type of emulsion. Magnesium salts are used to compact the micelles, no? So in that case, if you use EDTA, it will chelate the magnesium ions and break the emulsion. Calcium salts, sometimes calcium, it's calcium stearate, no, you can say. It's used in forming, say, water in oil emulsion. Now, in some hair creams, it's used. There also you can't use EDTA. So, you have to be very careful when you use calcium salts and magnesium salts. However, EDTA, chelating agents, what it does is, it helps soaps to foam well, also in hard water. How? How? Because hardness of water is caused by calcium and magnesium salts, right? So, in shampoos, no, if chelating agents are there, right, it will, soaps is one thing, soap definitely it will not foam. So, if chelating agents are there in the soap, what it does is, it chelates with calcium and magnesium salts in the water and make the hard water little soft, so that foaming is good. Otherwise, soap is precipitated by this calcium and magnesium salts, so it will not foam in hard water. So, that is how in shampoos also. In shampoos, even though surfactants foam relatively well in hard water, it is better that if the water is softer, it gives much more the cleansing and hair benefits. So, EDTA is already, apart from protecting the product from heavy metals, EDTA also improves the performance of the product by making even hard water soft, right, by chelating calcium and magnesium salts in the hard water, make it soft. So, these are also cationics. Cationics, see, we said anionic, non-ionic, cationic, amphoteric, when we studied the surfactants, are incompatible. No, anionics are incompatible. So, with specifically, no, so you have to be with chelating agents. So, you have to be careful when you use cationics and chelating agents together. You check the compatibility fully before you use cationics and chelating agents together. So, this is what I want to share with you today. So, what we studied today is about antioxidants and chelating agents. In the next class, next session, we will discuss about antimicrobial preservatives, right? At the end of the session, it's the life lesson, right? Part 18, my life lesson: be patient and tolerant. Be patient and tolerant. Thank you for listening. Bye.